This is CBC Vancouver News.
Your hat shows you're bad because you're following stupid rules.
Islamophobia is very real in Canada.
A Muslim visitor to BC is hit with a racist tirade in Burnaby. The calls for better protection.
We're actually considering bringing in a more permanent solution that's safe and solid for everyone.
They've just unilaterally moved this in without any public discussion.
Vancouver's Park Board votes to remove the temporary bike lane through Stanley Park. What might replace it?
I believe kids need to see it to believe that it's possible to happen.
And a professional women's soccer league is coming to Canada, and Vancouver will get a team. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A Muslim woman visiting BC has been the target of a racist tirade. It happened after her family parked in a customer-only lawn in Burnaby. As Joel Ballard tells us, she had only been in the country for 2 days visiting her daughter. A warning, the story contains distressing details of Islamophobic behavior and coarse language.
It happened here, in the Wings restaurant parking lot. The woman was waiting for her daughter. Having never seen snow before, she pulled out her camera. That's when the man approached, and she kept filming.
No parking here unless you're going here. You are going there. No good. You're a bad person. You're a bad person.
She told him she didn't speak English, but he continued, zeroing in on her hijab.
Your hat shows you're bad because you're following stupid rules. These are good rules.
He becomes increasingly aggressive.
And you claim to not understand. You obviously understand. You look in my eyes, you understand what I'm saying. You say I don't understand, you're full of shit. You're a liar and a hypocrite. You understand French? Mange la merde. You understand that?
En français, je comprends.
Mange la merde, you stupid hypocrite.
Burnaby RCMP is investigating, and CBC News has agreed to keep the woman and her family's identities confidential to protect them from further abuse.
But when he found out she doesn't speak English, I think he found it as an opportunity, just to speak all of this racist ideas, just because she couldn't understand him.
The daughter and her husband have lived in BC for years and have never felt unsafe, until now.
I'm myself a proud Canadian, my wife too. This is not the Canadian way. This is not how Canadians treat visitors and immigrants. But to be honest, Islamophobia is very real in Canada.
Islamophobia is on the rise in Canada. Hate crimes against Muslims rose 71% in 2021, according to Statistics Canada. Community leaders say women are often the target.
Women who are wearing the outward symbol of their faith, meaning a hijab, a head covering, are a modest clothing, that they are being targeted, that they are being abused. It goes beyond the pale.
The National Council of Canadian Muslims says it receives reports of racism every day.
We really need government and police and all levels of government to tackle this and be assertive and say, hate is not something that we're going to tolerate.
Though difficult, the family chose to share the video publicly to spread awareness.
To be honest, I don't want this to happen to anyone else.
Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC health officials say not nearly enough children in this province are vaccinated against the flu. The rise in illnesses has led to long wait times at hospitals. And as Mira Baines reports, the push is now on to get more people protected.
As cases of flu and other respiratory illnesses among children soar across the country, hospitals are seeing increased demands for help.
This past week, we've heard from pediatrician colleagues, in particular from BC Children's Hospital and from hospitals around the province, that they're starting to see and hear more about severe cases of influenza and in some cases complications from influenza.
The estimated wait time to see a doctor at Children's Hospital was reported to be over 10 hours on Friday and over 9 hours on Saturday. The hospital briefly called a code orange Saturday morning. It can be used for mass casualty events, but the hospital says it was used to escalate notification for staffing resources. Dr. Henry says the influenza virus has hit BC earlier than previous years. She says children under the age of 5, pregnant women, and people over 65 are more vulnerable to severe illness from the flu. But flu vaccinations among children are low, including kids 6 months to 4 years old.
Amongst those children, we have only 20% have been vaccinated. For those 5 to 11, 20% have been vaccinated. And for our teens, only 15%.
So health officials are again urging people to get children and themselves vaccinated. Ballum says there will be walk-in days at more clinics this weekend. Dr. Henry notes it takes 6 to 8 weeks for the flu to move through the population. This flu cycle is at about week 2, which means the virus will be circulating during the holidays.
Going to want to spend time with family and friends, and that's a situation where we can spread the virus even more. So really important. Now's the time to get this done.
Critics say the province needs to provide more information to parents and guardians.
The public doesn't get to know the absentee rate in schools. The public doesn't get to know the conditions in schools. We need a far better approach than what we're seeing.
While Dr. Henry says she's not prepared to bring back a mask mandate, she does encourage people to wear them if they have flu symptoms. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
So how many children are sick with the flu in hospitals right now? Let's take a look. Flu cases started spiking around mid-November. Now, this latest data is from the week of November 20th. It shows out of 169 kids at BC Children's Hospital with respiratory viruses, 71 of them had the flu, 43 had RSV, and 17 young patients tested positive for COVID. More than a third of the youngsters tested in hospital are coming back positive for this year's dominant flu strain. That rate is growing, even though it's already higher compared to pre-pandemic averages. Imported over-the-counter kids' medicine has now started to arrive in Canada, and many store shelves are fully stocked. For months, finding kids' Tylenol and Advil has been a struggle for parents and guardians. Health Canada has been working to secure more stock. Now 1 million bottles of it are being distributed to stores. More is expected in the coming days. Well, it's tough news for cyclists and encouraging news for some drivers. Tonight, the Vancouver Park Board voted to remove a dedicated temporary bike lane through Stanley Park. For now.
Show of hands, please. All in favor?
The bike lane was installed in June 2020 as a temporary way for cyclists and cars to share the road. But since October's municipal election, talk of removing it has risen among the majority ABC party commissioners. The motion asked that the lane be removed in time for peak holiday season to prevent traffic and increase accessibility for people with disabilities.
They're just regular folks that like to use it. There's seniors, there's disabled cyclists, and they all enjoy it. And now we're just removing it for all of them now. It's very unfortunate.
To come up with a permanent solution that's safe and not temporary, that's surrounded by orange cones, is the way to go. And I'm actually looking forward to our following year.
It's not clear when an alternative may be installed and what that might cost. To other health news now, as cases of avian flu climb in BC, it might be harder for you to buy a turkey for Christmas. As Yasmin Gandam reports, the industry says supply is down nearly a quarter.
The holiday season may look a little different this year around the dinner table. An avian flu outbreak means supply of BC turkeys is down.
We are for sure getting short at about 25%, so that's about 250 turkeys that we know right off the bat we're not getting.
Hopkotz owns and operates her family's butcher shop. The shop orders turkeys from local farms. She says a lot of orders have been taken, but there is no guarantee the birds will be on the table come the holidays.
It's still a bit of an unknown for about another week or so. So we've been communicating that with the customers that we're happy to take their order. There's a chance they might not be getting their turkey.
Out at Saniston Farms, their 50 fresh turkeys are already accounted for. With health and safety measures at an all-time high, farmers have had no choice but to adapt.
In some ways, I likened it to sort of the COVID pandemic we've lived through, where it's kind of similar. We just had to learn to be more careful and be more sanitary and just take extra protocols in how we distance from one another. It's no difference for the animals.
Poultry experts don't expect the avian influenza season to end until the summer, once migration for wild birds comes to a close, but say there is no risk to consuming what you can find.
Consumers can feel assured that you can't get avian influenza from eating poultry products, so you're totally safe eating your Christmas turkey or eggs or chicken.
Small flock poultry owners are also encouraged to prepare in case their birds become sick, with the BC government holding a virtual information session Monday to offer some tips. Since September, it's logged more than 45 cases of avian flu in the province. Despite less gobble-gobble on the dinner table, business owners remain optimistic.
And obviously you want really good food, but there's, that's, I guess, not really what it's about. So, it's just going to be another different holiday like we've had for the past few years.
If you are hoping for turkey during the holidays, though, the advice is to buy whatever you can get your hands on, even if it's frozen. Yasmin Gantam, CBC News, Pitt Meadows.
A BC man has lost his appeal of convictions related to a so-called revenge porn website he designed to intimidate his ex-wife. In 2017, Patrick Fox was convicted of criminally harassing his ex online. He was later convicted of twice ignoring release orders arising from that sentence and ordered by 2 separate judges to serve time in prison. Fox hoped to have those decisions overturned, but lost by a unanimous decision. A Spanish civil rights group claims it has uncovered a secret Chinese police station here in Vancouver. The group's claim comes just months after we learned the RCMP is looking into 3 similar stations in and around Toronto. The exact location of the Vancouver station is not known right now. CBC News reached out to the Chinese embassy but has not heard back. The embassy has previously described the offices as volunteer-run service stations to process things like driver's licenses. But the report claims they were involved with persuading Chinese nationals suspected of crimes to return to the country to face criminal proceedings. It's a major milestone for soccer fans and the future of the sport in this country. Canada is going to have its own professional women's soccer league, and one team will be right here in Vancouver. Renee Filipponi has more from the players leading the charge.
It's with mixed emotions. Soccer star Christine Sinclair cheered on Canada's men at the World Cup, all too aware the opportunities haven't been the same for women. That's about to change.
The idea of a professional league in Canada, it's been floating around and being talked about pretty much since I joined the national team.
Sinclair joined former teammate Diana Matheson to start the league, aware of the potential audience. The 2 players sat down with the Nationals' Adrian Arsenault to share the news.
Julia Grosso from Vancouver to win it for Canada!
At the Olympics in Tokyo, more than 4 million Canadians watched the women win gold, the most viewed event of the Games. The plan is to start the league in 2025 with 8 teams.
There's about 14 markets we're looking at across Canada, both population size and stadiums. We know we want the right owners, right people investing in those clubs.
Sinclair to the corner! Thorns up 2! In the U.S., the National Women's Soccer League has 12 teams, and there are a number of other professional leagues in Europe and Asia. More than 100 Canadian women play professional soccer abroad.
The talent here is unbelievable, and once we have these 8 high-performance pathways, the future of Canadian women's soccer is just going to get even brighter.
More than 168,000 girls are registered to play soccer in Canada. The hope is, with the possibility of getting paid to play, even more will be attracted to the sport.
We were, at one point, those little kids looking up to male athletes. And it's time to change the narrative and inspire the next group. I believe kids need to see it to believe that it's possible to happen.
There is no name yet for the league or word on whether Sinclair will hit the pitch in 2025.
We'll see what happens.
Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
The federal government is spending $25 million on Vancouver's new Jewish Community Centre. The money will be used to create a community hub, housing units, rental housing, and childcare. It's going to replace the existing facility and will also house the Vancouver Holocaust Education Centre.
It's far beyond the Jewish community. It benefits all communities here. I mean, I picked up my kids from various programs that take place here, from an aquatic center, childcare spaces, and also when it comes to rental housing as well. So it's going to be serving the community in a much larger way.
The Jewish Community Centre of Greater Vancouver was built in 1961. The new development will expand the current Oak Ridge site.
We tried hard to protect this forest.
How a simple path through a Prince George rainforest saved old-growth trees from being logged. We'll dive in after this. And thank you for joining us on our commercial-free live stream tonight. People in Port Alberni bid farewell to an iconic local eatery over the weekend. Solas Family Restaurant has been open for half a century. As Wamish Hamilton shows us, saying goodbye was bittersweet for the family and the community.
It's an emotional day in Port Alberni. After 53 years, a staple of the community has closed its doors. Solas Family Restaurant is no more.
It's all family today. Today's all family. It's all my sister from Alberta. It's all family.
Ivo Solas' parents opened the restaurant in 1969. It quickly became a local favorite. The eatery thrived when Port Alberni was booming, when it had one of the highest per capita incomes in all of Canada. It even survived the lows through the resource economy crash and when families left.
Just the mall days and just developing a restaurant at that time. My dad, just designing it, getting it done. And over the years, with the downfall of the forestry industry and all that, it was a tough time at that time.
Ivo took over the business, but it stops here. His kids aren't interested in running the restaurant. Despite that, the family came together to keep it going in its final weeks.
The city is really expanding. We've come a long ways from the little mill town that we were used to being known for, and we have customers who are sad, but some are really happy about what's going on in Port Alberni.
It was busy here on its final day. Well-wishers stopped by to say goodbye and wish the Solas congratulations on a well-earned retirement.
I'd like to thank all the customers over the years. That's the best part of the job. Otherwise, too much work.
Customers say the restaurant meant as much to them as it did to the family.
I feel pretty good about it. I've been coming to Solas for over 50 years. Yeah, it's been a real part of my growing up as a kid.
To me, I'm trying not to get emotional because so many meetings we had here, luncheon meetings, so many family gatherings here.
It's bittersweet, but Ivo feels it's the right time to close this chapter of their lives as they begin to create a new one. Wamish Hamilton, CBC News, Port Alberni.
A rare rainforest outside Prince George is going to be preserved for future generations, thanks to a community group. After learning that logging companies were eyeing the area, they proposed a simple trail designed to offer the forest long-term protection. As Radio-Canada's Camille Vernet reports, it's a boardwalk with a stunning view and path towards reconciliation.
About an hour away from Prince George, ancient trees, untouched.
This forest, it's been here for 2, 3, maybe 10,000 years in developing before it became an ancient forest. And it was scheduled to be logged.
In 2005, volunteers built a pathway to draw visitors in to admire the rainforest, hoping to save it.
We tried hard to protect this forest. We just wanted to make this area accessible for everybody.
As people started to pay attention to the forest, so did the provincial government. And in 2016, the land was designated as a provincial park, conserving thousands of hectares of old growth. It's an ecosystem filled with wonders at every corner for this UNBC professor.
It's a lichen with personality, and I think it's the cutest lichen that I know of here. We are still finding new species as we go out into the landscape here. In these temperate rainforests, there are far more species growing above my head, growing epiphytic on the trees, than there are growing on the forest floor.
Darwin is proud of the community for coming together to defend biodiversity.
So in Prince George and McBride and Valemont, communities that are dependent on the forest industry and proud of that part of their heritage, they took ownership of these old forests and said, look, we think this ancient forest site is very important.
But the protected area is only a small fraction of the rainforest. Members of the Clay-Clitenay First Nation say much more needs to be done to protect their lands.
It is still a bit of a battleground, and we're trying to protect beyond the boundaries of the park because the boundaries of the park aren't enough to protect this unique ecosystem.
Okay, so we're measuring the diameter of this cedar tree here.
These massive trees are located outside of the protected area.
4.4 meters.
The team has been measuring and mapping trees, hoping to add them to the park.
I think we're now realizing that special places such as this are becoming increasingly rare, and if we want our children or our grandchildren, if we want future generations to experience them, we've only got a decade or so to ensure that they're still going to be here.
Along with protecting trees, a reawakening of a nation. The plan also including a new interpretive center to learn about Clay-Clitenay culture.
Now we have an opportunity to highlight and pay people for their unique history and understanding of Plateley culture. And this helps bring a lot of pride into who they are and the area they're in and the work that they're doing.
A boardwalk leading into the forest, providing a path not just for a park, but for reconciliation as well. Camille Vernet, Radio-Canada, Prince George.
You're looking at the Eagle Chair on Cypress Mountain at sunset earlier tonight. Tomorrow morning's commute could be a bit of a challenge. We have a risk of freezing drizzle, among other things. Johanna will have your BC-wide forecast. Stick around.
Every time Robert William Picton makes a court appearance, the media is out in force to cover every turn, every nuance of the case.
Can you give us an outline of the preliminary?
But more than a month before his preliminary hearing is set to begin, another hearing is about to get underway. Picton's lawyer will go to court this week to ask for something extraordinary.
The judge will have to consider whether he can close the courtroom completely, whether that's acceptable in the circumstances.
Ritchie says the regular publication ban may not be enough.
We're all worried, concerned that the evidence from the preliminary hearing may get out in public and influence a potential jury pool.
So Ritchie will ask for the preliminary hearing to be held behind closed doors. No families, no public, no media.
It's very unusual to have an in-camera hearing, like in other words, closed-door court proceeding.
Dan Burritt will be fighting Ritchie's application for the CBC.
The majority of people there are going to be Canadians and Canadian media who based on the track record, can be trusted with the information. If the problem relates to a small select group, then deal with that small select group. Don't shut out the entire Canadian public effectively from the room.
That small select group is the American media. It was American media who broke a publication ban and published evidence in the trial of Paul Bernardo nearly 10 years ago.
Tonight, the vanishing.
U.S. network programs, local stations from Washington state, and American newspapers have been covering the Picton case very closely. And there's concern they'll ignore the publication ban and broadcast details of the case against Picton. But for the families who have been attending court until now, that's not a good enough reason to keep them out.
My right to be there, the right of the other families and the public to be there, I think is important, and I intend to protect that right.
Ernie Cray has hired a lawyer to help him do that.
We all fully expected to be able to sit in that courtroom. We've prepared ourselves emotionally and psychologically to be there, and the things that are going to be talked about in the preliminary are of importance to us personally.
The American media will be represented by their own lawyer in court. He refused to say in advance what his arguments will be. The hearing is scheduled to last all week, and in the end, the judge will have to decide who, if anyone, gets to be in the courtroom when the preliminary hearing begins in January. Melissa Fung, CBC News, Vancouver.
On behalf of all of us here at CBC British Columbia, thank you.
Thank you for making the season kind.
Thank you for your generosity, for caring, for giving hope.
Your donations are so much appreciated.
You made a difference to British Columbians who need help. Well done.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast. Out in the elements, meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. And we've got more elements set to come down on us from above, Joe. What's going on?
Dan, we have all the elements still to come overnight and tomorrow morning. Yeah, you're right, though. We've got freezing drizzle, snow, and rain, along with the cold temperatures and the hard snow that's still on the ground across much of Metro Vancouver. Let me show you what's coming in the next couple of hours. So we've got an Arctic front almost tracking east to west across the province. That's dropping temperatures dramatically in the interior, creating that outflow that I've indicated in the yellow arrows. That means those cold winds blowing towards the coast. And we've got that special weather statement as a little low pressure system collides with that cold air. So for Metro Vancouver, out towards the Fraser Valley and inland sections of the island, what we're really looking at through the overnight, really in the next couple of hours, is the possibility for freezing drizzle. And I think the best shot for us in Vancouver will be through the commute hours. Just a very slight chance of seeing that freezing drizzle come down, likely changing over to snow flurries, maybe even some just regular old raindrops through the afternoon. For Tuesday. It's not a lot of precip though, but that weather statement is in place because of the timing for the morning commute. I'm letting that low slide down the coast as I take you through the rest of the week. So the rest of the week is wet and mainly of the water precipitation type. So looking to see this snow change over to rain for much of the south coast as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. Now the interior, you're going to see temperatures warm up for the middle of the week after seeing some very cold wind chills the past couple of mornings. So much more moderated over the next couple of days. And we're really seeing that warm up here in Metro Vancouver. A 6 for Wednesday, a 7 for Thursday. We'll see a lot of this snow disappear. Messy on the roads, though, where that ice, that snow and ice has really been compacted. And then look at that, Dan. We return to the snow as we head into the weekend. And we're not done with this cold weather or our chance of a white Christmas yet. So a flip-flopping kind of forecast.
Flip-flopping with the fifth element. Okay.
Yes.
Good work.
With no flip-flops.
No, Kevin, no, don't wear them outside. Bye.
Bye.
That's your late news for Monday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That begins tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. Good night.